Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mac Movie Reviews podcast. I'm your host, Mac, joined here as usual by my co-host, Jason Riddick Movies. Say hello to the folks at home, Jason.
Sup?
So, we have a very special episode today. We are joined here by a very special guest. You may know him as the host of the Kill Count for the Dead Meat, or the host of the Dead Meat podcast with his fiance, Chelsea A. Rebecca, the one, the only, James A. Janisse. Welcome to the show, James.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
No problem. Thanks for coming on here today, man. Just thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. That's the first time I've ever heard Chelsea introduced with her with her middle initial, which is also A, just like mine.
So, for those of people who may not know, would you like to maybe introduce yourself to the audience who may not know your content?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just a guy on YouTube, really. I run the channel Dead Meat. I host the flagship show, The Kill Count. And yeah, that basically just takes horror movies and runs through them with the hook of counting up the kills. Although throughout the past 3 years that I've been running it, in fact, yesterday was my 3-year anniversary of the first episode coming out. It's evolved into a much bigger show than just counting kills. It's basically a full summary, a review, commentary, behind the scenes information. I try to just give everyone all the information about the movies I'm covering that I can. And then alongside that, as you mentioned, my fiance, Chelsea A. Rebecca, hosts the Dead Meat podcast, and I co-host with her, although she does all the work for it. And that does deeper dive reviews into movies that we watch, as well as doing other things like more analytic, more academic looks at horror and the history of the genre. Sometimes we play games. It's a very free-form show, but all surrounding horror.
Okay. So, would you give for people who haven't seen your videos before, what specific video would you recommend for someone who's coming new to the channel?
Ooh, that's a good question. I recently rewatched my kill count on the birds, and I think that's a pretty solid one. It's got a nice mix of production info, good jokes, summary. So yeah, I would say maybe the birds kill count. And also the benefit there is if you're squeamish about gore and everything, you don't have to worry about it because it's a 1960s Alfred Hitchcock movie. There's not that much blood.
There you go, everyone. Check out the birds. That's a good count. It's one of my favorites. I like. So, let's start off with the interview, shall we? So,
Sure.
the first question I want to ask you is that what got you first into the like interested in film slash TV in your life?
Huh. Interested in film and TV, like in general. I'm not sure. My family always watched TV. I don't remember a time without watching TV. It was, standard American middle class home. Just the TV was always on. So it's always been a part of my life. Going to the movies has always been a part of my life. And, I don't think it was until maybe my senior year of high school that I really decided, oh, I think I want to make movies. I want to go into film school and try to make films. And around that time, I was starting to watch a lot more movies, like a lot more classics through Netflix, but back before Netflix was streaming, because I'm an old man. So that was back when Netflix was just mailing DVDs. And so I would get 3 DVDs in the mail and go through them. And I would just try watching all the, old Kubrick films and just everything I could get my hands on. And I think it was actually Quentin Tarantino and Kevin Smith movies, and they're like their characters' dialogue, which is sometimes great and sometimes not. But that was kind of what got me into thinking like, oh, I could make movies and do this. So I went to college at the University of Michigan, majored in film production alongside a cognitive psychology major. But I tried making my own films, and they were way too much like Kevin Smith movies in that nothing really happened, and they were just like stoners talking to each other. So I quickly decided that maybe making feature-length films was not for me, but I did enjoy making sketches and things that made people laugh. So that was actually how I started on YouTube, was making comedy sketches on my old channel, Practical Folks, which was also done with Chelsea and a couple of other friends. And we started that in 2013, I think. And I did that for 4 years, making sketches and a show called Drunk Disney before deciding to launch Dead Meat.
Oh, so I remember you said something about your first kill count. I saw on Twitter yesterday. You said that your first kill count for Friday the 13th was released April 7th, 2017.
Yes.
And what would you think you'd be doing if you didn't do Dead Meat?
Oh man. Well, when I started Dead Meat, at that time, I was working as a video editor for Full Screen, a a web-based company that it's kind of like an MCN, but they also have clients in the form of large corporations. So the client that I was working with was Fox Television, so Fox Broadcasting Network, like shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy and Last Man on Earth was there when I was there. So what my job was going into Fox 4 days a week, and the last day of the week I'd go into Full Screen. But I would make internet content for Fox shows. So I would be making internet videos for like Gotham and Empire and all the shows that they had on their network. And I got that job in part based on my work on Practical Folks, that other YouTube channel, because they saw that I had good comedic timing, that I knew how to make videos that appealed to people on the internet. So that's what they put me in charge of there. And through my work at Fox, I got even better at editing. Video editing is something I taught myself back in probably I don't know, middle school. So I've been doing it for a long time, but I got even better when it was my full-time job. But had Dead Meat not launched or gotten as big as it did, I'd probably still be doing something along those lines. I might have looked into editing trailers for movies. One of my best friends, Mike, is a trailer editor, and he's very good at it. And that seems like something I'd be very good at because it's the same kind of thing that I do to a certain degree, taking a movie, picking its best parts, showing the highlights, editing it to make it look exciting. So I think I'd be very good at trailer editing, but I've always, always, always wanted to work for myself, make content on my own terms, and I'm unbelievably fortunate that it actually worked out and that that's what I'm doing.
So you primarily focus on horror movies.
Yes.
So what got you into the horror genre as a whole? Because you're quite the horror fanatic. I see in your videos you have quite the a vast collection of horror memorabilia and props in your videos, and it's just what got you into the horror genre? Because a lot of people when they see horror, they run away in terror.
Oh, for sure. That's another thing where, people ask me what the first horror movie I ever saw was, and I can't really answer that because it's just another thing that's always been a part of my life. I do remember certain things that stand out from childhood. I remember watching Night of the Living Dead as a very young child, and I've told this story lots of times, but I would always cry when the truck blew up with the young kids in it, and then the zombies would eat them. And I remember my mom trying to comfort me by saying, "Oh, it's fine. It's like they're eating fried chicken." And I don't know if that worked or not, but good effort, mom. But I definitely remember Night of the Living Dead. I remember the satirical horror film by John Waters, Serial Mom. That was another one of my mom's favorites that I would watch as a kid. And then I remember Scream when it first came out. So that movie came out in 1996. And whenever it was available for home video, which either would have been later that year or maybe 97. So I would have been 7 or 8 years old. And I remember my family putting it on in the living room. And during that opening scene, me just running the hell away because it was so scary. So I guess 7 or 8, I was still a little bit afraid of them. But I know that by 10 years old, I was full on into horror movies. And I don't know if it was just something that appealed to me because it felt more adult or more mature than what I was quote unquote supposed to be watching. My parents didn't care. And in fact, sometimes I'm like, hey, maybe they should have had more boundaries. But even my mom took me up to the video store, the local video store, and gave me permission to rent R-rated movies on my own. So I distinctly remember in 7th grade writing out to-do lists and including which horror movies I was going to ride my bike up to the store and rent on my own. And they would be stuff like Slumber Party Massacre, just full of
Wow.
gore and nudity. And there I was, a 11, 12-year-old watching them. And I even learned HTML, the very basic web coding language, to make a website for me and my friends to host reviews and, in fact, body counts, kill counts for all these movies that we were watching. So this is something that's been a part of my life forever. And so in 2017, when I decided that I wanted to make my own channel just to avoid the bureaucracy and red tape of having to put every decision through a group of 4 people, I was like, what do I know? Like, what can I speak with some authority on? And I landed on horror movies. And ever since then, I've just gotten more and more back into them. Obviously, I think my Blu-ray count is up to over 500 movies, just horror movies now. And like you said, all the memorabilia that just overflows the set that's in my video. There's tons of it in storage upstairs in my little loft area. But yeah, it's just something I'm very passionate about.
I'm interested in the inception of ideas, really. And can you talk a little bit about how you had the idea for Dead Me and why you decided? The kill count and why you decided to cover kills.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, even when I made a horror movie website back when I was preteen, having a body count or kill count was one of the aspects of that site because I just found it was, you know, you said you're interested in the inception of ideas, and I am too, but it's because I'm not very good at it. I'm not a creative person, at least in the sense of starting something from nothing. I can take an idea that someone's already had and try to come up with ways to improve it or just go a different direction with it. But coming up with something from nothing is not my strong suit. And it's taken me a long time to just feel comfortable saying that because, I think of myself as a creative. I work in, the creative arts. And so it can be a little hard to admit, oh, I'm not great at coming up with new, unique ideas out of nowhere. But because my brain kind of works in a more mathematical sense, counting up the kills in a movie is something that has just always appealed to me because it was like a hard number. It was something to latch onto and something to keep track of. I'm a big data guy. I like to keep track of as much data as possible. I'm obsessed with analytics on my YouTube channel and just stats everywhere. I mentioned my other major in college was brain behavior and cognitive science. That was a lot of statistical math work and looking at studies. So counting up kills was just like a quantitative way to look at movies. And then thankfully, since in the meantime of being an adult, I've taken improv classes and really dived into trying to be a comedian. So I was able to make a comedic aspect and add that to the quantitative aspect. Because, I mean, if you look at that first kill count, it's really just me running through the kills in that movie, just jumping from kill to kill to kill to count them up, and that's it. And there are jokes in there, but I quickly learned that the thing that was more appealing to me about making these videos was to try to come up with as many jokes as possible and try to make people laugh as much as possible. That is way more important to me than counting up kills. Like that's just the hook I use to get people in.
So I guess another thing I would have to say is that you said you were taking improv classes to like become a comedian and everything, and I know you've dived into some acting as well. Like you covered a show that you were in called The Look-See.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to try some more acting in your future, like to incorporate some more acting and possibly do some maybe like a full length Dead Meat documentary movie, just a Dead Meat feature production of a film?
Oh yeah, for sure. When I was making my short films in college, I would always give myself a role. Not the main role, but like second build or like third build. I would give myself a substantial role. Again, going off of Quentin Tarantino, Kevin Smith, who would give themselves roles in their own movies. And so I would do that, and I really enjoyed acting. I've always enjoyed acting. In the sketches that we made before Dead Meat was a thing, I always enjoyed acting, but I don't think I was great at it. And that I think the time that maybe you're referring to when you said that that I've tried acting before. When I first came out to LA, I had a solid entry-level job at NBC Universal, and I had that for a year. It was a year-long position. And when that ended, I decided, okay, I'm going to try to, I'm going to do the actor thing. I'm going to go to auditions. I'm going to get headshots. I'm going to enroll in castingnetworks.com and just try to get all these roles. And I would go out for auditions, and I just never got anything that was solid, man, because looking back, I just wasn't very good. And I think part of it was misplaced confidence that maybe was covering up an actual lack of confidence. Like I thought that I was confident in myself, but looking back, I can see that I wasn't really. I mean, I was 24 years old, I think, when I was out here doing that thing. So it was me trying to be someone I wasn't. And now I'd really like to try again to try acting roles and do that, because now as a 30-year-old about to be 31, I'm much more confident and secure in who I am. And I think that's very important as far as being an actor, because part of acting is you have to pretend to be someone else. And I think that's going to be very difficult if you don't even have a baseline understanding and security with who you are as yourself. And so that is something I'd like to be getting into as the years continue. And it's actually, I want to try to be careful not to completely box myself in to the horror genre. As much as I love it and as much as I would love to continue working with it for my entire life, I do see, as I cover these movies and I now get to talk to and interview people involved in the genre, for a large portion of the people who work in it, they're sometimes kind of confined to it, constricted to it. I've seen it called the horror ghetto before, because other genres and filmmakers who work in other genres don't really take horror seriously. And that may be changing now, thanks to people like Jordan Peele and Eggers and Ari Aster and these people who are making these movies that are getting more recognized critically and recognized as horror films, and that horror can be serious. And you got Toni Collette in Hereditary, and I do think maybe it's changing a little bit, but there is always that worry that once you're in horror, you're stuck in horror. Like, I think of Barbara Crampton, who, if you're a fan of horror, you know who Barbara Crampton is. You, like, obviously it's a no-brainer. But if you don't watch horror movies, you probably don't know who she is. Like, she can probably just go to the store and not be bothered by anyone. And, while there are certainly benefits to that level of fame, it's just kind of bewildering to someone who sees her in so many things and who looks up to her as like an icon of film, and to remember that, for most people, they don't really know who she is. So I would love to. You mentioned a documentary. That'd be cool, because as you can tell, I'm very comfortable talking about myself, my work, and I have a good grasp on my own history, my own autobiographical history, and the history of my work. So that'd be cool. Unless you mean like a documentary on other things within the horror genre, just like produced by Dead Meat.
Yeah, like maybe like kind of like a history, like those like Hulu, like Through the Ages, like kind of like a horror movie Through the Ages type stuff, like produced by Dead Meat.
Yeah, like Eli Roth just had a show, I think, that did that. And there's Horror Noir, which was a Shudder production, I think, that looked at the history of African Americans in horror. So yeah, that'd be cool. That's actually something that I think Chelsea would probably be even better at than me, because she gets into such the academic history of the genre with all the research she does for the podcast. And I'd love to be a part of it, but yeah, I'd actually be more interested in doing like on-screen stuff.
That's good. So, you guys over at Dead Meat, you guys have made like such a great community. Your fans, what I've seen on Twitter, your comment section, everything. You guys have like such like a big family over there, and it's great. But I wanted to ask something. So, beginning of 2020, you made a video saying a schedule change.
Yeah.
And your schedule change was pretty much. So since like your first kill count on in 2017, you were doing kill counts consistently every single Friday. What was the reaction when you said you were going to be taking a break and not doing the kill counts every Friday until I believe it was next month in May? You were going to be doing the every Friday kill counts again. What was the reaction to that?
Yeah, so like you said, since April 7th, 2017, I released a kill count, at least one every single week. And, normally they'd come out Fridays. There were a few times where stuff got clogged up in YouTube and they had to come out Saturday, but it was at least one every single week, sometimes two. And on a couple of occasions, I think there were 3 kill counts in a week. So that's a lot of episodes, especially considering that as time went on, they grew in length and became more often than not a 20-minute video, as opposed to the more 12 to 15-minute video that they were back 3 years ago. So by time I announced that reduced schedule, I like to call it, instead of a break, because I wanted to just take a break, but my YouTube network that helps me manage all these things were like, dude, if you don't put out any videos for a couple of months, the algorithm will just punish you severely, and you may never get to the same kind of views that you're seeing now. So I don't like to call it a break, because I have been putting out a video every week. They're just not always kill counts. And obviously kill counts are the big attraction for the channel, and they get, over 1 million views each episode, except for one of them. And the other videos I put out, things that are like either ranking videos that rank kills in the franchise or little interview videos. They definitely don't do as well, but I have been told that putting them out at least keeps me within the algorithm. So that's what I've been doing. But when I announced my reduced schedule, I think there were 195 kill count episodes. So there was a lot. That was a lot of work to do consistently for 2.5 years. And I announced the break January 1st, 2020, telling people that I just needed a little bit of time because I mean that's what the case was. Maintaining that schedule was pretty hard on me, especially in the first year or the first 6 months of doing those videos. That was when I was still working at Fox from April to November of 2017. And getting a channel off the ground is not easy, especially as you see these views come in and your popularity spike, and you want to keep that going. And you know that if you take off a week, you could just damage everything that you're working towards. So during those 6 months, I mean, I'll never forget the amount of there was some suffering involved there because I was putting in at least 40 hours a week on dead meat while also working a 50-hour full-time job. And what that involved was getting up at 5:30 or 6 every day, going into work early to avoid traffic, just to, shave off a half hour that I'd be sitting in traffic. So going into work when it was dark, getting to work and working on dead meat until my boss came in, and then switching over to real work, spending my lunch hour at my desk working on dead meat, and then leaving work, going home and working on dead meat until 12 or 1 and going to sleep and getting about 4 hours of sleep. And I did that every single day for 6 months. And, my health suffered. I won't say my relationship suffered because Chelsea was very understanding of it, but it's not something that I would ever want to put her through again because, I just wasn't available as a partner. And like I said, she stood by me during all of it, but it couldn't have been fun for her to just have her boyfriend at the time just completely absent and unavailable. So that was those first 6 months. And then throughout 2018, it was kind of the same thing, even though I was no longer working at Fox because the videos got longer. Like I said, I was trying to maintain the popularity. And so it was still a thing where my social life suffered and it was just all dead meat all the time. 2019 was a lot better than 2018 because by then I had hired a couple of people to help me edit. I still edit like the final pass on all my videos because as an editor, I'm very particular as to how my videos should look in the end. But I do have a couple of people who are helping me out at this point, and it saves a ton of time. And so 2019 was the best year up until then as far as my work-life balance goes. I was able to do social things and see people and spend more time with Chelsea. But, in September of 2019, I proposed to Chelsea, so we got engaged. And wedding planning is a big thing. I don't know if you know this. If you've never planned a wedding before, it's a pretty big deal, especially for us. We have a very large social circle. We're planning about 250 people at the wedding, and it's a very important thing to us. So we want to make sure that this one-time event for our lives is special and perfectly planned. And so between that and just wanting to avoid burnout because, you do this for 2.5 years straight, nonstop, it can start to feel a little bit like, man, am I even doing what I love anymore? I decided to, yes, have a reduced schedule and release only one kill count a month for the beginning of 2020. Like I said, I would get back to it in May of 2020, which as of recording is next month. I didn't maintain the one a month strictly. I did 2 in February because of Valentine. I did and then when the quarantine happened, that threw all the plans out the window because I realized everyone was home. They wanted to watch stuff, and so I kind of had to pounce on that opportunity. But the reaction to when I announced it was mixed. I will say it was mostly positive. It was, if I had to guess, I'd say it was, I don't know, 70% positive, maybe even more from the comments that I saw, because I think a lot of the people, especially people who had been with me from early on, or maybe people who had come into editing live streams and saw the amount of work that went into these videos, I think they understood that it was a lot for me to keep up, and that I just needed a break just for my own mental health and to focus again on my physical health, which is something that's very important to me and which suffered a lot in 2017 and 2018. But even if it were 90% positive, what sucks is that just it's human nature to dwell on that last 10%. That's the negative people. And there were some negative comments in response to the schedule announcement. There were some people who said that, I mean, it ran the gamut from I'm being lazy, I'm being entitled, and I'm going to ruin my channel, and, you know, RIP dead meat, add dead meat to the kill count because it's never coming back, shit like that. So, and that, you know, it's really hard not to dwell on that, not to focus on those. And after a couple of days or maybe a week or something, it got to the point where I had to I just made a lengthy post on my subreddit just explaining how, you know, that wasn't helping me. Like, I was already personally apprehensive about this, knowing the dangers of YouTube's algorithm and trying to, you know, adhere to it and not be left out of it. And so I just made a post letting people know, hey, it's not helping. And the response to that was even more positive than the initial schedule announcement. I think some people were even like, hey, I'm sorry for being more negative or critical of this decision. So ever since then, it's been fine. I think I had to make that Reddit post to kind of just like air my grievances with the response. And I think once I was able to get that off my chest, anyone who was still being negative, I could just write off as being like, well, you just don't get it, man. And no matter what I say, you're not going to. So I can't please everyone. I've explained what I can to everyone, and most people are understanding. So I'm grateful for everyone who was positive and understanding when I made that announcement, especially because, I mean, I've been busy these first few months of 2020. I wasn't just, you know, just sitting around playing video games that whole time. I've been working on a lot of things to prep so that when I come back over the spring and summer of this year, I'm going to have more frequent releases than what I had before. And in fact, you know what? I'll go ahead and break some breaking news here on your podcast. Yeah, this
okay.
I haven't said this to anyone for at least May and June. I'm looking at my schedule. There will be 2 kill counts a week. So and I haven't said that publicly anywhere. So there you go. You got your scoop. And so yeah, and the only way that's possible is because I took all that time off and allowed me to, instead of just nonstop working on the next kill count that needed to be out that week, I was able to spend a couple of days in a row just writing scripts for episodes where I didn't even know when I would release them. I just wanted to write the scripts. And so it was nice to be able to do that and just kind of, you know, build up a backlog of things that now I can move into production on and start filming, but like the scripts are already done from that time period where it was a little easier on me.
Well, you know, yeah, it's good because, you know, some people got to understand that, you know, content creators, the people too, they struggle with a lot of issues. And it's just like sometimes we just need a break. You know, we took a break. Me and Jason, we took a break from our podcasts, I say in February to about like last month. And we just came back and this all happened. So we came back. We just needed a break and everything. So it's
Yeah,
like
man.
sometimes it's just good to just take a break and people will understand.
Yeah, you know, I think, and it's totally understandable with people who work, you know, quote unquote regular jobs, like a 9 to 5. And, you know, they see me or a podcaster or a YouTuber and they're like, how can your job be difficult? Why would you need a break? Like, you work from home. You're, in my case, I'm covering movies that I love. Why would you need a break? And I totally get that, and I would never say that my job is more difficult than anyone who has to go in and, you know, a fast food worker. They have a harder time at work than me, for sure. But I think a creative job is different, and if you're not a creative or exploring that option as a career, you might not understand that part of the creative process, I think, is giving your brain a little bit of time off and a little bit of time to wander. Like, that's part of the process. And thankfully for me, I'm just wired weird. I can work nonstop. And it's the reason Dead Meat has been so successful is because I did those 6 months with 4 hours of sleep a night with nonstop work. And I don't think that many people could do that. And I don't think they should be expected to do that. But even in my case, I do need some time to just kind of like chill and relax, because you're not going to be able to make a quality product if you're strung out or burnt out and you don't have time to really, I mean, like my scripts, I do a number of passes on them. It's up to now I do like 3 passes on each script, making sure that every single word is what I want it to be. And sure, I could crank out more videos if I didn't do that, if I just filmed my first draft, but they would not be videos that I would be proud of. And I don't think that the channel would be as successful, because I like to think that people recognize the work that goes into those videos and sees that it's a higher quality than a first draft.
What gives you the motivation to continue creating?
The motivation to continue creating. Well, now that Dead Meats is my job, and it has been since November 2017, part of the motivation is like, I don't want to lose this opportunity. I don't know if I'll ever have to work for someone else again, get another 9 to 5 again in my life. I would prefer not to, just because me personally, I've always had a difficult time finding the motivation to work for something that isn't me, like a company that isn't me, just because it seems weird to really bust my ass and go above and beyond for just your regular average everyday paycheck. Whereas right now, if I bust my ass and put in extra work, I will see a immediate reward that's direct to that work in the form of more ad revenue, more views, etc. So that's a motivation, is definitely just to keep being able to do what I do. But I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm wired a little differently. Like, productivity is really just my driving force in life. I have a hard time just hanging out and just chilling with people. Even if I'm watching a show, I like to be doing a puzzle or just something that is keeping me occupied. And even if it's just a matter of like cleaning my apartment, my brain just looks at it almost like a game, as like, oh, you will accomplish this and check it off your list. Like, to-do lists are integral to my life, because I just like that feeling of checking something off and feeling like I've accomplished something and I got something done. So I like I said, I don't expect everyone to be like that, and they shouldn't, because we need a lot of different people in this world to make it work. But luckily for me, that motivation just is something that's innate to me. And my friends and Chelsea, they have commented on it, and they're just like, I don't see how you can be as productive as you are. But I don't know, man. It's just me. I love what I do. I want to keep doing what I do, and I also just want to make people laugh. I want to make people have something that they really like to watch, and so the positive comments help in that motivation. And then, of course, it'd be dishonest to not acknowledge there's also a personal aspect to it. I would like to be well known and liked by people, and as long as I'm making videos that they enjoy, I think that helps that goal.
What advice would you give to anyone who wants to do YouTube as a full-time career?
Yeah, I get this a lot, because it happened so fast for me. I mean, that's actually misleading, because people look at when my first video came out in April and when I had Dead Meat become my full-time job in November, and they're like, "Oh, that's 6 months, 7 months. That happened so fast for you." But those people are ignoring the 4 years that I spent doing Practical Folks, the comedy YouTube channel. And I mean, that was the goal back then too. It was like, how can we make this our jobs? And it was a lot more difficult in a group of 4 people, because no matter how much money the channel's making, you're dividing that by 4, and that's almost going to be impossible to make living wages for everyone when you divide it by 4. But regardless, I put in the work for 4 years, and I learned what works on YouTube, what doesn't. I learned how to film videos. I learned how to edit videos. I honed my own comedic capabilities and my on-screen personality, because if you go back to early Practical Folks videos or the early Drunk Disney videos, I'm not the same guy as I am now on screen. And maybe I was the same guy in person, but it's not easy to portray yourself when you know that a camera's rolling. And so in those early Practical Folks videos, I'm a little too try-hardy and maybe a little bit more awkward. And I've really developed my on-screen personality to a point that I'm happy with now with Dead Meat. But so I think the first thing to say to someone who wants YouTube to be their career is acknowledging that it's not easy, that it's not likely, how many YouTube channels are out there, and then how many of those are actually the person's sole source of income. Not many, man. It's probably less than 1% at this point, just how many channels are out there. But just know that it is a lot of work. And I mean, it can be up to a full-time job's worth of work. And so I think some people see it as a career option that maybe they think will be easier than a regular job, but it's not necessarily, at least as far as time commitment goes. And the other thing I would say is the channel or whatever you're doing on YouTube should be something that you are truly passionate about. Don't just try to do what you think will be the most popular thing, whatever that may be. You have to do something, and this ties into the amount of work that it takes, that you're going to be comfortable losing some sleep over to get it right. And you're going to be comfortable spending a year or years working on without much reward, with low views. And during those early time periods, when you're not getting the external motivation of views and comments and all that stuff, you just have to have that internal motivation of doing something that you love. And that was the case with Dead Meat. I know that my videos got really popular really fast, and I will forever be lucky with that. But even before, because I think Jason X is the video I always think of when I saw the views on that video the day it came out. I remember where I was. I remember how I felt. It was incredible because it had surpassed anything I had seen with Practical Folks. But even before Jason X came out, all those other kill counts were taking me a lot of work, but I just fucking loved doing them, even though they weren't getting as many views as I had hoped. I loved making them, and I was proud of the work. And so do something that you love and make the end product something you're proud of. It doesn't have to be perfect, because you can't get something perfect, especially those early videos. I go back and watch them like, Jesus, it's probably why next year or at some point in the future, I will probably remake the Friday the 13th kill counts, because they're just so different than what I do now. But still, I got them to a point that I was proud of. And so don't just, and it goes along with that, rewriting my scripts. Don't just poop something out to get it online. Make something that you're proud of, make something that you're passionate about, because for a while, that might be the thing that has to sustain your workload.
There you go. That's an interesting TED talk from James H. Janisse about the YouTube advice. Career, just take it one step at a time. Being a content creator on YouTube, there are the growing pains, like you said. Every time there's been instances I've seen when, what are the feelings? How frustrating is it when a video gets copyright claimed or striked?
Oh,
And
Jesus,
you have to
man.
delay it, because I've seen a few of them. Like an example off the top of my head, It Follows and the Reanimator videos have been copyright claimed or striked, and you've had to
Actually, so that was a separate thing. Those were age restrictions, because
oh,
what I'm dealing with actually, because because I cover horror movies, which are sometimes graphic, I'm dealing with two separate, distinct issues on YouTube. On one side is the copyright claims, and that is going to happen because I use a lot of movie footage in my videos. I believe strongly that my use of them falls under fair use, because fair use includes commentary and critique, and that is what the kill counts are. They are commentary on the movies I'm covering. They also function as reviews. And so I strongly believe that I'm not doing anything illegal, but of course, companies that own that footage have the right to dispute that and try to claim their footage as their own. And so that's one side of things. And that's going to happen if you use any kind of movie footage, TV footage, game footage. Definitely will happen with music, because I think the auto detection on audio content is a lot more stringent than visual content, even though it's maybe starting to catch up. But that was one of the reasons I sought Made In, which is my YouTube network. I actually, I kept running into these copyright problems, and there would be copyright claims from companies. And what would happen is they'd claim the video, and even though the video would still have ads on it, which is, the downside for the viewer, I would no longer be making any revenue from it. The companies would. And, I know some people are like, well, yeah, they own the footage. That's right. But I consider the footage being used as just one small part of the video because, my work goes into the script that I wrote, the performance of the script, because most of the audio in the video is me talking. It's not the movie footage audio. I only use those clips sparingly. It's the editing that I do, which takes a lot of work. It's the graphics work that's there. So there's a lot of work. There's much more work done by me that comprises the video than just that movie footage. And I'm sure some people would debate that, but that's my belief anyway. And so it would suck when I would put in all this work to make a kill count and then the ads would be running on it, but it would be, Fox or MGM that was getting the revenue instead of me after all the hours of work I put into it. So what I did when I kept running into this issue was I just thought, okay, what other YouTube channel out there uses a lot of movie footage? And I thought CinemaSins. They do what I do, and in fact, they don't even cut to any kind of host. Like for me, it cuts to me on my set talking directly into the camera. CinemaSins is visually, at least, strictly just the movie footage. But obviously, they have to be making revenue, or else they wouldn't be as big and sustainable as they are. So I looked up what MCN, which is a multi-channel network, and I looked up what MCN represented CinemaSins, and I kind of expected it to be one of the bigger names. They go in and out of business so much that I can't keep track of what's still around. But I know that like Full Screen is an MCN. Machinima was one, and there are all these networks that have like tens of thousands of YouTube channels, and they represent them. And so I expected one of those when I looked up who was helping CinemaSins, but it wasn't. It was this company called Made In, based in Tennessee, out of Nashville, and they only represent about maybe a dozen channels, and they're big channels. They're CinemaSins, they're Binging with Babish, they're channels of that caliber, but they're a very small, intimate, personal company. And so I saw that they represented CinemaSins, and I reached out to them. I found their email address and I emailed them and was like, hey, I'm Dead Meat. My channel at that point was maybe 700,000. It definitely wasn't a million, but so I may be smaller than the channels you have, but I think it's going to keep growing. Would you be interested in helping me? And Kevin from Made In, he flew out from Nashville to LA to meet with me personally, and I just can't speak more positively about my relationship with them. They've helped me so much, and one of the big things that they do is dispute these copyright claims, and sometimes that's just filling in the form that YouTube offers you to dispute the copyright claims, but other times it helps that they have actual personal connections with people at these studios and can get things moving on a faster track for stuff like that. So it's definitely a thing where it's like who because if I didn't have them, I don't know how many of my videos would still be copyright claimed, but they've gotten most of those claims removed just through trial and error and, saying the right things in the YouTube form or talking to the right people. And it's unfortunate that option isn't available for everyone because, there are many smaller channels that are using movie footage exactly like I am, which I believe is fair use, but they get hit with copyright claims and they don't have the same means as I do as combating that. And I think that sucks because my belief is these movie companies, they're doing fine. They don't need to grab the small amount of ad revenue that these smaller channels are generating. But yeah, that's how I deal with that. And then on the other side of things is the YouTube's age restrictions and limitization of monetization based on explicit content, and that's just gotten more and more strict throughout the years. When I started in 2017, there wasn't really my videos weren't getting age restricted, and back then, I mean, if you look at those Friday the 13th kill counts, I include everything in there, even like the nudity. I've always censored like nipples on topless women, but they were small censors. Like they were small little Jason masks. They did not leave much to the imagination. But back then those videos were fine. They would be monetized. Now every single Friday the 13th video is restricted in some way. And that'll be another benefit of remaking them is so that I can actually earn some revenue off them and censor them appropriately. Because as the years continue, I don't know why YouTube does this. I guess they just want it to be more of a family friendly platform. My issue with it, and I completely understand wanting to age restrict videos that have graphic content like mine sometimes do. I completely understand that. If you want to age restrict it so people who are not the adult legal age can't watch it, I get that. The issue is that when YouTube age restricts your video, it also completely demonetizes it, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because, you go to an R-rated movie in the theater, those are age restricted. Minors can't go there, but there are still ads that play in front of those movies. Like there are still companies out there who would be comfortable advertising on videos that are age restricted, but for some reason YouTube doesn't allow that. So that's my issue with that. And that's something that Maiden has also been working on to try to come up with a solution for. And I think if you watch one of Matt Pat's videos, he goes into because he's working with Maiden on that front as well. So it's a constant adaptation. Because especially with YouTube's rules constantly changing, you need to constantly just change to adapt to it because that's really what I ran into with the Saw kill counts because obviously those movies are extremely graphic and YouTube would not monetize any of those videos. So what I had to start doing then was having two separate versions of each kill count when required, a public version that fit YouTube's restrictions, and then I would make a explicit version with all the gore intact and offer that to my patrons. And I know that people are maybe they're like, why would that might seem skeezy or like you're making the graphic videos and putting it behind a paywall, which they can I see as a complaint, but I'm trying to make it in the most sensible way because these videos, like I said, take a lot of time. Now I'm paying other people to help me make them, so those people need to get paid in addition to me. And if I make a video that immediately gets age restricted and demonetized, then there's no income to pay for the work that it took to make them. The videos just don't make themselves for free, So that's why the explicit versions I think is the best compromise I could come up with because I offer it to patrons even if they're patrons just for $1 a month. So if you really want to see all that gore, you can pay $1 a month to see it all. But otherwise, you can see the version with maybe blurred out gore, or I try to just cut out the gore altogether so that's not as jarring. People see the blur and they get a little upset that something's being censored. So I try to just cut that out altogether. And those videos are still free. You're just not seeing all the gore that's in the movies themselves, which go watch the movie. Just go watch the movie if you really want to see that, But it's like I said, it's just problems come up and you just have to be creative and flexible and adaptable if you want to still make it work.
I got one more question on my side of it. What achievements and milestones are you most proud of since you've been on YouTube?
Oh man. I mean the first million subscribers was definitely kind of a surreal moment. I remember it I was at Comic-Con and it would have been 2018 I think when it was getting real close. It was like 990 something when I left Comic-Con, and it was actually when I go to Comic-Con, I get an Airbnb with a bunch of my closest friends, and so it's a big party, and I really wanted to hit 1 million while we were down there in San Diego, so I could have everyone celebrate with me, and it didn't quite happen. It was actually we drove back up to LA, and it was that night after we got back that it hit 1 million. But Chelsea and I did a little live stream as it hit, and I popped a bottle of champagne, and I still have the cork from that bottle with the date written on it because that was my. I mean, 1 million people it's surreal. It's one of those numbers that's just too big for us to properly comprehend in our little tiny human brains. And so hitting that was definitely very cool. I think the series that I did with Crypt TV, where I got to interview people who I've been watching since I was a kid. I got to interview Tony Todd and Eli Roth and Joe Dante. That's a huge accomplishment to me. And I don't know, I guess just in general, just building a community that I'm very conscious of being a positive and friendly community. I mean, my sign off is be good people because I really want everyone to be that way. And I want people to know that just because you're into horror doesn't mean you have to be, weird or mean or into death like in real life. you can like the fictional stuff and still be a good person who cares about other people in real life. And I just I think that I've been moderately successful in that endeavor, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a very insightful way. It made me feel inspired.
Oh, good, man.
Jason, do you have anything else you want to ask before I get into the fan questions before we wrap it
Oh,
all up?
sure. I have two more fun ones.
Oh, sure.
What are some of your favorite horror directors working today?
Ooh, horror directors working today. Nice. I love Robert Eggers, his two movies. It's Robert, right? Not Roger. I should know this.
Yeah,
If yeah.
yeah, Robert.
So yeah, Robert Eggers has only done The Witch in the Lighthouse, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe he did some short films. No, I think it's just The Witch in the Lighthouse. But already, I absolutely love those movies. I love the uniqueness of them. I really like Ari Aster. You know, same thing. It's just the two big movies, Hereditary and Midsummer. But I really like what he's bringing there. And these are like they're almost stereotypical answers at this point. If I say Jordan Peele next, it's like, well, oh, obviously. But I mean, it's true. I do really like what they do. Lee Winnell, I think,
Oh, yeah.
is incredible that not only did he make Saw, which like defined the genre in the mid 2000s, but he also came back and made Upgrade, which I think is incredible, and then Invisible Man, which has the same kind of like it's like tech-based horror, which is really cool, and he does it so well. And I know Upgrade had a astonishingly small budget to work with for what you see on the screen, and I'm just so impressed by his work and that he was able to not only do Saw 15 years ago, even more now, but come back and make new awesome movies as well. Like I love it, man. So definitely those names. I'm sure I could, if I really thought more about it, I could come up with other people. But yeah, they're the ones that bubble up to my brain first.
And lastly, what are some of your favorite aspects of horror movies for your own personal enjoyment? What do you look for in a horror movie?
Yeah, so there are lots of different things that can make me real happy about a horror movie. There's not just one subgenre that I prefer because I think of some movies like Ice Cream Man, Blood Rage, Sleepaway Camp, these older movies that are so fucking weird and so like they're so awkward and bad that they're so entertaining to me and I love them. I like basically I think the most overriding thing that I look for in any artwork is something that's different, something that's daring, something that's trying to do something different. And that's why, The Witch in the Lighthouse stick out to me so much because people just don't make movies like that. I mean, The Lighthouse is a fucking square aspect ratio in black and white with old-timey seaman language. Like that's not usually what you see when you go to the movies. So I like things that are daring enough to be different. As far as subgenres go, I do like home invasion movies. I tend to think those are pretty fun because they're kind of like, oh, what would I do in this situation? So like The Strangers, I really enjoy. I don't necessarily love the first Purge, but it's a home invasion movie. It's not bad. And then let's see. I'm trying to think of what other. Oh, and obviously, if it's good gore, I'm impressed by it, especially if it's practical effects. Terrifier is not one of my favorite horror movies. I have a lot of issues with it, but man, that gore is so fucking impressive, man.
Right.
It's terrible. I can't watch it. It scares me just because of the clown. I don't like clowns.
It's a great performance. And he's a nice
Yes.
guy in real life.
I've seen him. He seems like a nice guy. So I got a few questions from our fans because I announced this as like, oh yeah, James A. Janisse is coming on a podcast. So first question I got is from a big supporter of our page is SJock1103. Here's a question for James. Do you and Chelsea miss doing Drunk Disney on your other big show on YouTube?
Let's yes with qualifications. I think it was a fun time, and I watch some of those old videos sometimes, some old Drunk Disneys, and I still think they're funny. I think they were overlooked. I think they're a little underrated, which probably had to do with our release schedule. We released them once a month because of the toll it took not only to edit them, but the drinking involved was not something we could do that frequently. So that was a monthly release, and I think had it somehow been a weekly release, it probably could have gotten bigger. But also, I think I think a reason why that didn't do better than it did is because the fan base was a little incongruent with our style of humor. Because with horror audiences, they're down for whatever, so we can say whatever we want and everyone's pretty cool with it. But with Drunk Disney, if you can believe it, we were actually way more raunchy and more profane than either of us are in the podcast or in the kill count. So Drunk Disney is us at our most vulgar. And I wonder if the combination of drunk, vulgar people just didn't click with a large portion of the Disney audience who maybe, the the hook was Disney movies, and then those Disney fans come in and are like, "Oh, these are bad people." So, I loved making them. I wish that we could finish the series, but that's just not going to happen because the amount of work that it takes to make them, it's just not worth the amount of views that they get. It would just be all this time working for basically for free. And as much as I love that final product, it doesn't compute properly. And I don't know if Dave, our third member of Drunk Disney, would do another one. I think he would. I think he would come back for one more if we really wanted him to. And that is a dream of mine, is just get the band back together for one last Drunk Disney. But again, the amount of time it takes to edit them is basically the amount of time it takes to make a kill count. So that's a lot of work, and the views just do not reward that work.
Next question I got is from Read a Book Sometimes. She asks, "Have you ever seen the classic Bucket of Blood? If so, what did you think of it?"
Oh, Bucket of Blood. Yeah, I actually covered that on a kill count because that was in honor of Dick Miller, who stars in it and had passed away. And because he is a person who I really like seeing in movies, he's in the extended intro that we use for non-kill count videos that Chelsea created for the podcast. And he's the final word in it. He says, "If I ever catch the bastards who did this, they're dead meat." And I love seeing him and stuff. And he lived to 90 something. And when he passed away, I wanted to honor him by doing a movie that he was not just a bit player in, which is what he usually does, but was actually the star of, and that was A Bucket of Blood. And I really enjoyed it. It's kind of like a test run for oh shit, I can't believe I'm blanking on the name. Oh my God, Feed Me, Seymour. Oh, okay. It's kind of a test run for Little Shop of Horrors, which was made, I think, back to back with that by the same people, and which Dick Miller is in. But I enjoyed it. It's nice to see a movie that old because that's from the 50s, and it's great to see beatnik culture portrayed by a contemporary film, not just looking back.
Let me see. Listen, oh my god, I suck at names. Lesson Lagalisi. I apologize if I mispronounced that. Underscore 12. She asked, "What was the last movie you went to, and what did you think?" AKA, what was the last movie you saw before we were all stuck inside our houses?
Yeah, right. Actually, my friends and I were just talking about this yesterday, so I know the answer. It was Invisible Man, which I'm glad I got to see in theaters because of the sound design and just how awesome it was. So yeah, that was the last thing I saw in theaters before in the before times. And I'm glad I got to, because it's such a good movie and I can't wait to cover it on the channel.
I think we all saw that. Jason, you saw that too, right? Before
Yeah.
everything. Oh my god, what a coincidence of that. So last question we have is from Cutie Bear. She asks, "What movie makes you cry every time you watch it?"
Oh, what movie makes me cry every time? You know what it is? It's Royal Tenenbaums, man. The end of that movie with Alec Baldwin narrating what happens to Royal and Ben Stiller's role in that, and just the father-son relationship there. I cannot watch that without crying, and that's probably why I would say that that's my favorite movie.
Royal Tenenbaums.
Yes.
I would say it's this boy in the striped pajamas because I watched that in school, and then I'm not gonna cry. I'm a man, and then I broke down crying. They had to take me out of class. So that's all the questions we have. We want to Thank you, James, for joining us today. Just big honor. Just thank you for taking time out of your day and come on here. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
So that's gonna do it for today's show. We want to thank you all for tuning in. Next week, Jason and I have no idea what we're gonna do. We're probably gonna talk about it anyway. So tune in next week, and James's social media links will be down in the description below. But until next time, we'll see you guys and keep safe out there too. And remember, practice social distancing.